Okay, so another product that I'd like to talk to you about today is the Reverb 1x remote. So Reverb was introduced quite a few years back now. It's been a super popular product for us, well over 1 million products out there in the marketplace. And when it was first introduced, it was introduced with a lever very similar to this. Slight differences in that this was silver on the first introduction, but basically a thumb push lever. And this could be mounted on top of the bar or alternatively underneath the bar on the other side. A great device, hydraulic system as we'll know. The only limitation that we found with the Reverb lever is that it takes quite a lot of force to actuate that lever. So you really have to push it with a little bit of thumb force to get it moving there. So it was actually a couple of years ago that the team at Shox and the product management team decided that they needed to make a new lever that was much more ergonomic and easier to actuate than the current lever. So that's where the project Reverb 1x started. So Reverb 1x then, if you take a look at this lever, is this particular lever here. So in terms of its architecture and structure, as you can see, looks a lot more like, if I put this in a position it actually works, this sits underneath your brake lever and actually mounts just as a gear shifter would do on the left-hand side, which would be your front shifter. But as you'll know, SRAM being a 1x company, we don't have front shifters anymore, we don't have front derailleurs, so we've freed up that space underneath the brake lever to create a new shifter mechanism, which actually works in your Reverb 1x remote in exactly the same. In fact, if you take a neat thing about this is if you take the architecture and the swing angle and the lever length of the gear shifter on our Eagle drivetrains, on our 1x drivetrains, what you'll notice is that this lever will feel very, very similar, almost identical in terms of its swing and mechanical engineering to make it work, to actuate it. So a paddle shifter for Reverb 1x remote. I actually have a little cutaway here, just a neat little diagram of how that works. So from the older shifter, works in a similar way. You're using a piston inside here, you push on the lever, it pushes a piston and forces oil down here into the Reverb to actuate the seat post. In this particular mechanism, as you can see, we have a pivot joint here and a push rod. As you push the lever across, it pushes the cup seal and forces oil down and does the same thing, but this movement, this angular rotation rather than a direct push, takes a lot less lever force and actuation, meaning that it's a much more comfortable push, a much more comfortable swing, and a great update for anybody that has a Reverb on their bike. This can be purchased as a full Reverb setup, so the post and the Reverb remote itself, or it can be purchased as a single product, as an aftermarket Reverb assembly alone. And this Reverb assembly will work on a lot of our Reverbs, but not entirely all of them. So when we first launched Reverb, we launched the Reverb A1. And A1 you might be familiar with because it had a silver collar around the seat post, and it actually had a silver barrel adjuster on here. We then went to B1, which went black, and then black on the collar itself, and then B2, which is our current Reverb, which you might be able to tell is the one that has Shox written around the top of the seat post itself. So importantly here, the Reverb 1x remote works with A2 and B1 seat posts. So it won't work with the A1 seat post, but you don't see that many of those out there that much anymore. So that's a Reverb 1x remote. Key things to remember on this one: much more ergonomic paddle shift design, feels a lot more like a lever on the bar, a lot easier to use. We're finding a lot of riders are using their Reverb much more often because they're not having to think about where that lever is to push that button and really apply that force. It's a much more intuitive, much more relaxing way to use your Reverb and actuate that dropper post system on your bike.